All right, guys. Thank you for joining for today's session. Today we have a special session. Today's anonymous candidates will be for QA managers and QA leads. So we do this the first time for managerial positions, but Enrico and I, we have been hosting similar meetups in the past already. So thank you for joining. And let me tell you like what you should expect from today's session. And let me introduce our panelists and interviewers. So my name is Evgeny Kim. As I said, I'm the host of the mock interviews. And Enrico Bernardo, he's a vice president of software quality assurance at American Specialty Health. And we are waiting for Brittany Jones to join. She's a director of quality assurance at company Swift. So quick disclaimer, today is an educational event. It's not a job opportunity or job interview. You need to have a clear expectation that we all volunteer to help people um, improve their interviewing skills. We do not represent any other companies besides our own opinion. I think that should be clear. And if you guys, whoever is the first time, can you guys hit the plus sign so we will see, do we have new people? That would be interesting. Meanwhile, how it works. So we have today two anonymous candidates who will be participating for the interview for, as I said, positions for QA manager and QA lead. And all our candidates, they have two simple questions to get prepared. First, tell me about yourself. And the second, what did you do at your last company, project, and so on. So both questions will be limited in 4 minutes. I will be keeping the track of the time, and after that, we're gonna have the follow-up questions from Enrico and Brittany as well. And after follow-up questions, we'll give the feedback, what went well, what it should be improved, and overall feedback. All right, I think that should be clear enough. In order to participate, guys, in our anonymous interview sessions, please, I will post a link in the chat. Please go to either meetup.com to our group, and I think most of you guys join here through the meetup.com, or you can go directly to our website, skillsjob.com slash mock interviews, and you can apply through there. Yeah, if you guys have any other questions, please give us any questions you want in the chat or in the Slack. We're gonna post the Slack one more time here. And yeah, let's get started. Ira, how our candidates? Do we have the candidate number one ready to start? Okay, we have candidate. Okay, okay. Hey, candidate number two, are you ready to start? Let me stop sharing my screen.
Yes.
How are you?
Good.
Good, good. So please tell me, can you share your give me
Yes.
a
Okay.
second to let me. You can try share your screen right now. And before we start, can you a little bit tell us which position you are pursuing? Are you pursuing for QA lead position or managerial position like QA manager or something like that? Which one you would prefer?
I would prefer QA lead.
QA lead, right?
Yes.
Okay, okay. That will give us a clear understanding. All right, let's get started. Are you ready? Candidate number one?
Yes.
You're ready.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm
So
ready.
please, candidate number one, tell us a little bit about yourself and about your last project.
Yes, so hi, everyone. I'm candidate number one. Thank you for your time. I have been in QA as a QA lead and manager position for the past 10 years. My first QA project, I started as the first person in the QA team as the POC is transitioning to a product. And then since then, I spent 5 years and built a QA program for the team, while I myself worked on almost all of the aspects of software QA. And the product itself is a set of C++ APIs for Windows that is interfacing with hardware capabilities. That is what the product is. It's a set of C++ APIs that we release. And then I've always been a hands-on person, an engineer at heart. So while I was working as a QA lead and later I was promoted to be a manager for 2 years, I've always spent most of my time in the lab working with the engineers. I've always done testing, running tests, debugging, while I was also working on the lead duties, such as running bug scrub, participate in daily scrum, and also work with program management, release criteria, and give go-ahead to releases with the program managers. After the API products, I also worked on 2 other products recently. One is a 2 system level QA testing products. One is a FPGA system for servers. Another one is an innovative design of PC platform. So for the latest product I've worked on, this innovative design that we did, it's a joint engineering product with our key customers, and we also did joint validation. It's a little bit different. Usually we do our own validation and we do our release to our customers, but this time around we almost equally contributed with the customer, and then we do weekly releases to them, and we meet with them every week. Updates on progress, we share methodologies and things like that. And for this program also, because it's the innovative design, almost everything is new. So I worked on test content development, tools, automation scripts, all the way to bugs and the release process, and also work with program management to give go ahead, to assess the health and give a go ahead to the release every week. So I think overall, my main contribution or my main strength is I'm familiar with not just one part of QA, because QA is it's a big field. It has a lot of responsibilities. But I've been working on all the different areas, and mostly with PCs and Windows operating system. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Enrico, do you have follow-up questions?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. It's good to be back here. Thank you, candidate number one, for presenting your story and for sharing with us your experiences. So just curious, I'm glad to see that you've not only been an automation or QA engineer, but also a lead and a manager as well. So it looks like you've had quite a few leadership positions. I guess my first question would be, why not manager?
I think I enjoy the engineering part more. I think as I go into a new environment, I like to be more focused. I'm not entirely saying no to a manager position, but I like to focus more on the product itself, technology and the engineering process, more than managerial duties.
So maybe just so we know your understanding, and then as well as for our audience in here, what do you think the differences are between a manager, a lead, and an individual contributor, or someone who is a kind of a QA engineer in general, senior or mid-level type of thing? What are the differences in your mind for those?
Okay, so I've been working with this company for a long time. So at least in my experience, manager has more responsibility of managing people, making sure, like, on the more like the people aspect, making sure they grow, and obtain the right talents for the team. And QA don't have to really worry about the growth of people and all that stuff, and they just have to worry about quality of the product and all the engineering and execution and infrastructure areas. It's my understanding.
Yeah, those are really good. So what does a lead do? Because it's somewhere in the middle in there. And I know the answer is, well, somewhere in between. But in your mind, what do you think a lead does that's different from what you just described?
So a lead, I mean, a lead also interact with people. They make sure they remove roadblocks or answer questions when people have, but they are not managing people's careers as much as the manager would do. We're not worried about also the ranking, rating, promotion, all that stuff, people management areas. And then the manager probably will not worry too much about the details of the execution, technical difficulties, things like that, that would be handed over to the lead.
Yeah, and these are important levels for you to understand and to kind of get clear on, because you played these roles in your current company. I think you mentioned you've been there for a long time. This question is more applicable when you go to your next company. When you're applying for a position and it's either going to be an individual contributor or a management position, if you're going to say, I want to be a lead or a senior, what makes someone a lead or a senior? And so really understanding that level of what makes you different from someone else is a big key. And that's the part that you want to sell in there. Like what makes you stand out compared to others? So with that being said, maybe you could share a little bit about some transferable skills that you have, with your current company. And if you move to another company, what are some of those transferable skills that make you different from someone else who's also new to that company and does not have product knowledge? Can you talk a little bit about those skills?
Yeah, sure. I think for QA especially, there are a lot of skills that are transferable. It really doesn't matter what the technology that you're validating. First of all, I think that developing test content, that skill, like whether it's a manual testing or automation testing, the test content itself, you want to develop ones that are, you hit the critical features, do the most coverage, and try to find the most critical bugs. That is a skill that, if you have done a lot of content creation, come up with test cases, you'll be able to have a good grasp of how to approach that. And also the BKMs, best known methods, like all the good methods about writing good test content, efficient test content, and also good defects that avoids a lot of the back and forth with the development team, how to engage with development team and program management, again, to eliminate a lot, to try to clarify things quickly, avoid misunderstandings. All those stuff could make QA really efficient and then make it cost, especially from a cost perspective, make it more efficient. Yeah, and also tools like QA has a set of tools, no matter where you store your test cases, your bugs, or all the logistical tools. Like, I think those are, if you have used a few of them, then you know what is good, and it's really easy for you to get ramp up even for one that you haven't used before, because they're all more or less similar. And also continuous integration is another area that is very transferable, especially for Jenkins. It's open source and a lot of people are using it.
I have also follow-up questions adding to Enrico. So did you do test automation at your previous company or at your current company?
Yes, we did test automation. We did mostly with our internal tools. We have, because it's a big company and we've had our own internal tools that we have used for automation.
Mhm. So, did you also, what was your role as a senior or lead at in terms of implementing and developing test automation at your current project and company?
Yeah, so for the project we worked on, the FPGA system, when I joined the team, there's like not really they're just loose scripts, like Python scripts that people run to do testing. It wasn't really done in an organized way. So we use this internal tools, and then we have set up like the automation flow where we ask people to use a PyTest, and also set up a set of rules for people. This is a multiple geo team. Each one is testing on a subsystem. A set of rules on how they can set up their subsystem, and how they can write scripts for their subsystem, and then integrate into this automation framework. And plan on how much resource, how much hardware resource that you need for for the test cadence. So basically, like for planning, for multiple teams to work together to plan a process, to put all the automation scripts together into one system, and plan for hardware resources to run these tests so we can get legitimate results. There's a lot of details like how you, so what I did is that I did a POC for this tool, and then figure out the details about like how they can log, because the pain point is after the test when we have a failure, like how much log that you can provide to the developers for people to debug. So we need to figure out like how to log the system, log it automatically, how much log that you need, how do you store it, and then include that into the bug process.
Mhm. So, in terms of technical, you was also hands-on on developing test automation strategy at your company, right?
Uh, yeah, yeah. So in terms of hands-on, like if it's like a coding, for automation scripts, I did participate in coding, for some of the tests and running the tests and debug failures, due to scripts, and due to products. I did a lot of that. I'm pretty big on running tests myself, at least, a couple times a week, just so I can run into all the problems and know how to handle them and see where the problems could be. Also, I designed this process where, not design this process, but I set up a Scrum with the validation team, with the automation team, where they were releasing the automation scripts every 2 weeks. Because before they were just doing random releases and people use whatever version they have. And there were a lot of quality issues with the scripts that was causing false negative and false positive test results. It's really confusing. So we start having Scrum releases for our automation scripts to manage the quality of that.
Got it. Okay, Brittany is joining. So, the follow-up questions to that. Let's imagine you join to the new company, right? To the new team, and let's say they have just in the early stage test automation, or they try um, to implement the new way of test automation, and maybe managers, they don't really hands-on on that.
Yeah.
What would be your approach, and what would you suggest to the new team?
Okay, so I would suggest that first of all, because automation has a cost too. so first of all, like usually people have a lot of test cases accumulate over time if it's not a brand new product. So first of all, I would ask them to select the best test cases, like to select most valuable test cases and to try to automate. That is one area. Another aspect is that yeah. So like you have to decide what kind of automation like you want, like because you would constantly come up with new tests and new features generates new tests. And these new tests like first are written in English and then they're, and then they become automation, in code. So we have to decide like what kind of tools and you want to use to go from the, the humanly readable tests into the automation scripts. That is another area. And then overall, like, and then you just have to look at how much you have to decide your release. You have to look at the whole picture, like how often you want to do your release, how much automation you want to do to you can gradually build up your system, and how much hardware resource that you need, whatever system you're testing on, how much do you have to run these tests in parallel on a dedicated cadence, right? If you look at all of this, then you can decide how much automation you can develop over time. And I think it's also a good idea to really prioritize your tests and pick the most important ones to automate, because they would give you the most bang to the buck. Because if those tests fail, there's no point in running any other tests at all. So you can start automating with the most important ones, and then you would get, save a lot of resource, manual testing resource, and then gradually add up more, and eventually you reach more higher percentage of automation.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Brittany Jones just joined. Welcome to Brittany to our company. Brittany, hi. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing all right. Thank you. Apologies for being 26 minutes late. I had the wrong calendar invite set for myself. So thank you for allowing me to come in midway through.
Yeah, don't worry. It's a Saturday, so that's totally okay. All right, we have a candidate number one. We already covered a lot. Enrico, do you have any other follow-up questions?
Do we have any more time, or are we running out of time? What candidate?
No, we have 15 more minutes. Let's keep it like less than 10, and we'll give a feedback with a 5 minutes.
I was going to change gears a little bit. Candidate number one, have you? I mean, you've been with your company for a long time. Have you been involved in any of the hiring of newer engineers?
Yes.
Interviewing?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I have.
So tell us a little bit about what types of questions you ask new engineers, obviously as a lead of the company and an expert of your product, and what are some of the traits that you look for to hire someone versus people that you don't want to hire?
Okay, so what I'm looking for people, it depends on if I want a person to develop the tools or not. Okay, I have two types. One is if they need to develop the tools, I'm pretty much looking for a developer type of person that can be very effective in writing code and come up with the tool. If not, then but for both kinds of person, I like the validation engineer to be very interested in testing. I want the person to be curious.
Candidate number one, can I interject just to get a little clarity?
Yes.
Can you actually just give an example of when you were involved in hiring and maybe how you assessed the candidates and how you determined if they were right for the role, like based on their skill set with a specific example?
Yes. Yeah. So, yeah. Okay. So I have I'm not sure how to have an example. So mostly, so say for example, I'm hiring just a validation engineer in my team, right? And I like the person, and my ideal candidate when they, and I did, some of them really turn out to be quite ideal, is that they're familiar with technologies. They, because we're working on a C layer or layer higher than the driver APIs in the Windows OS, it would be really helpful that they understand the OS, understand C++ really well, or if not, at least they, when they see errors in Windows, they're advanced Windows users, that when they see errors in Windows, they have a good idea of, you know, the severity, what could be causing it. Is it coming from our product, or is it coming from the OS or somewhere else? And secondly, I'd like them to be very interested in testing, or preferably have had prior validation experience, because if they don't, and I've hired ones that don't, I spend time with them, like training them to give them, you know, some ideas about what validation is. So they would understand it. Also, like, they need to be hands-on with infrastructure, like how to set things up, the test environment. They should be familiar with that. And lastly, like who I wouldn't hire is someone that wanted to be a developer, and then and they thought they would just come to a testing team first, and then learn some coding, and then later they can switch to development. I think my bottom line is that I need somebody that love quality, that like to do testing and try different things all the time to find issues with the product.
That's an interesting idea. Can you tell me why you, let's see how to ask that. Can you tell me why you wouldn't want someone who is interested in career growth, who would want to start out in QA specifically? Like, what do you think, what impact would that have on the work that you're delivering on?
I think QA is like, you have to care about quality. What I found, like, to be better QA engineers are ones that are very patient with the product. They try different things with the product, whether they're coding or not. Their purpose is to test it, is to experiment with it so they can find issues. That is the mentality. It's probably not a growth path for a development career. If you just want to be a developer and you just want to be coding, what happens that they just kept on designing tools. They want to design, you know, they come all kinds of ideas, different tools, but it's not from a quality perspective. It's just for the sake of writing tools.
Okay, interesting.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does make sense. I would say that, you know, at Google, actually, the QA engineers build the tools for engineers to test their work. So it's an interesting idea that, like, your experience. So with your experience, have you worked with an engineer who wasn't interested in quality, and that's kind of what's formed your experience? Or, like, can you talk a little bit more about that?
Like, building tools and designing tools are two different things, right? Like a developer can build tools. Once its design specs is formed, we can build it, you know, with a development with a developer. But that's not a QA. QA's position is to find defects and resolve those defects. And usually we come up with ideas of how we do QA first, how we want to do QA, and then we decide what kind of tools we want to achieve that purpose and design that tool, and then finally we code for the tool. And agree, like, I think coding for a tool is either like a QA person with development experience or a developer can do that.
Okay, cool. I don't have any more follow-ups on that.
All right, thank you. think we're good, Yevgeny. She's been on the hot seat for a while. Thank you, by the way, candidate. You're doing a great job. Appreciate all your answers.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Being the first is always the most stressful. A lot of pressure to be the first. You guys want to go with the feedback, Enrico?
Yeah, happy to give you feedback. So once again, thank you so much, candidate. And I think you've had a lot of experience, 10 years. So as you can see, we've asked you different questions from, like functional QA work. We've asked you questions about automation, your leadership, even your hiring, because being there with the company for 10 years, you most likely are part of the hiring panel. I guess my high level feedback for you is after 10 years, maybe start looking at specializing into something. So if you could see where my questions were leading you early on, which was, well, do you want to be a manager? Where are you being as a lead? What does a lead really mean? Start to specialize in something. If I were to look at your resume, I know it's obfuscated, but some sort of either hardware specific areas that you seem to be working in is really good, or is it software related? Is it web? And then from there, start thinking about, well, what can I do to start shifting left? If it's a lot of system level testing, which I think I heard you say the term system level a couple of times. Well, maybe you might want to start figuring out, how do I shift left? How do I get into the code? How do I build more component tests and unit tests? Because I think that will start to narrow down your experience in QA and start to make you more specialized, which makes you a lot more valuable. But overall, I mean, you've had a lot of years as a system test engineer and a lot of good experience. It would be interesting, how you would kind of focus on that. So that's my feedback on there.
Okay,
Awesome.
thank you very much. Yeah, I agree with you.
Thank you. Brittany, do you want to do this?
Sure, I know I only was here for one question. So the first thing is, you handled my interjection very well. So I would say that shows that adaptability. And so I just want to give you props for that. Also me interjecting to get clarity, you also handled that well. Some feedback, I think that when you're interviewing in your next position, I would say it's important to reflect on your experience, because it illustrates that you have the capability through an example. And so just in that one example where Enrico asked about your hiring practices, if you look back on teams that you would staff or have staffed, or if you've been a part of, if any interviewing practices, and you talk about a specific role that you were filling, and you went into detail about how you assessed if a candidate was capable for that role or not, that would actually illustrate that you have that capability or instincts there, if you were just maybe on a panel or something. And so I would say, make sure you use experience. The other thing, I think, if you're going to be interviewing for management positions, I have successfully promoted people from QA to engineering, and so like to software engineers. So I would be mindful of that, because career growth is important as a leader, and investing in career growth, you should be looking at not only the positions in which you're filling, but your company. Because when you make a hire, you're hiring for your company, not just your department. And so just something to be mindful of. There might be different approaches. And so just keep that in mind when you're applying to different companies. Get a feel for their culture and what they're looking for.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah, great points. Thank you.
All right. And from my perspective, I would recommend you. It sounds like you haven't been on the market for a bit, right?
Right.
Have you?
No, I have not.
You have not, right? So I feel that you're a little bit stressed out. So maybe you need to a little bit more practicing with the interviewing. I know it's a completely different skill set compare what you do at your day work, but definitely just, my advice would be go practice with the interviewing. It sounds more, you need to sound more confident. And especially for managerial role and for lead role, I think the people who will be interviewing there would like to see that you can handle that. Yeah, other than that, thank you for being number one in our market review session, and I wish you good luck. Please keep going, and I think you should be good. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much for your opportunity. This was really helpful.
Thank you, candidate number one.
You're on mute.
Candidate number two, how are you?
There we go. I can hear you now. Yes. Good. How you doing?
Great, great. Can you share your screen with us?
I can.
All right.
You set? Okay.
We can see it very well, very well. Okay, let's get started. Candidate number two, please. Tell us a little bit about yourself, about your last project and company where you have been.
Sorry, say that again. I was blinking out.
Please tell us about yourself and your last
There we go.
project.
Okay. Yeah. So I started my career, roughly 16 years ago, coming in as a contractor on a firewall, an IPS team. Not having any experience in that, I was able to turn that into a full-time position with the company within an 18-month period of time. They felt that I was going to be integral in a upcoming release where they needed to support Vista, IPv6, and 64-bit processors. So it was going to be pretty stressful and a lot of work, and they need all hands on deck, and I earned that spot.
Awesome.
Sorry. Oh, okay. I heard no worries. I thought that was the question coming. So, so from there, I was able to, with the full-time position, end up becoming the lead on the team. Left for a little while. Came back to the company on a completely different project. So I got on the Mac team with zero Mac experience. Started working on a very hard component in licensing, working with the partner engineering team specifically on product releases that would be branded with partners and their licensing model. At the same time, learned more and more about the product as we went along. Tried to become an expert as much as I can, and that transitioned into when the company took on Agile, switching to Agile from Waterfall. So a completely different organization of the team itself. I was put on the release team because of my expertise in numerous aspects of the product that I was able to learn in those years. We decided to use Kanban where all the other Agile teams were going to be doing Scrub. So I was tasked with being the Kanban expert and implementing Kanban for the team itself. And anytime you're dealing with Agile, every company, every team, does things a little bit differently. You want to fit that for what your needs are and to allow you to grow as a team. So I was the one who did that, wrote Confluence pages, did trainings, et cetera, working with Agile coaches to really lay down that process. In the meantime, also being the lead on that team. So I wasn't just the QA lead, but I wasn't a dev lead, but I was a team lead, if that makes sense. So what I mean by that is just, as far as the QA lead goes, I was the one making sure the test plans were in place. Testing tickets were created, processes going. There's always a ticket in the ready column for a QA to pick up. And the reason why I say I'm not a dev lead, because I am certainly not a developer, and I don't, pick up defects and start, fixing them and that kind of a thing. But, we had, a senior developer that had that role. But when I say that I'm a team lead, what that means is I was running the stand-ups, I was running the scrub meetings, I was taking part in the release planning meetings, support meetings, product owner / subject matter experts meeting. I would also participate in automation meetings. And finally, the last one would be running the sync meetings that we would have once a week with our offshore counterparts that also had a dev team and a QA team, to make sure that we're all in alignment as one team for the release.
All right, great. Enrico, you want to start?
What role are you considering for your next job?
I feel I'm the best fit for a QA lead as far as where my, experience has been. But I feel that I've been, working my way towards a management position, but just not enough of that training on there where I could be like, oh yeah, I can jump in here and do, a manager role that has 3 or 4 years experience. I would just need something that would just be right there as an entry level on that. So it might be better for me to transition from a lead to a manager than to jump in as a manager.
What interests you about a leadership role? Like why do you want to move in that path?
It's, to me, kind of a natural progression. I've as you can see from my experience, I keep on having things kind of, added to my plate as things go, and I excel at it. And I keep on, here's this, Matt, do this, Matt, do this, Matt, do this. Yes, I'll do that. Yes, I'll do that. And I feel like I've grown in those types of things, and it's enjoyable and it's fun. And I think I'm ready to take that next step.
So playing off a little bit about, kind of that lead and entry level manager type of experience that I think that you're looking for. And this is going to be part of my feedback later, but I'm just going to lead you to it, which is talk to us a little bit about how you're influencing people around you, individuals, specifically QA engineers or automation engineers around you. How are you influencing them? How are you guiding them? So that this leadership, desire that you have naturally comes out in training in your current company.
Well, with that, there's, being the lead, you're very hands-on, or should be at least hands-on with the people that are, reporting to you. So you see different skill sets, you see different mindsets, and different performance levels. And as a team lead, you want to maximize their skill sets and your team and the output. So I might see somebody on my teams like, well, you're a little bit weaker in this and great in this. It can be natural to be like, oh, we have this release, it's very important. Let's just have you focus on the thing that you're good at. But the problem with that is you're not necessarily allowing them to grow, and you're also dependent on them for certain tasks and not other tasks, which means overall your team is going to be weaker in the long haul. So you want to look at ways to allow them to grow. When you're crunching, sometimes you just got to get it done, but you shouldn't always be crunching. You should always set goals, whether that's 6 month goals or 12-month goals or whatever, but allow them to be challenged and allow them to grow. And it adds job satisfaction. It adds something that they can add to resumes, and also, and career growth inside and outside the company. But you have to have that line of communication open with them as well, because maybe you never knew that they wanted to start developing test tools. And if they do, or whatever that case is, have an open mind and open ears, and try to get them going to where you want, and to also help the team out.
It sounds like you have a pretty good idea about what leadership means. So I'm wondering, in your mind, what's the difference between leadership and management?
Ooh. Well, for one, I mean, that's I'll just kind of speak on experience on that. You can be a leader without being a manager. You can when you're on a team, you can take initiative on things. You see problems. You don't want just to have a manager come in there and be like, oh, you need to do this. If you've got a strong team and with good leadership, the leadership can jump in there and see like, oh, okay, this is something that we need to work on. But to segue into the management part of it, the management part of it is where you make sure that it's going to be done. So to give an example, and this is something that I put on under my career achievements, as far as the 3-week release time reduced by a week through automation. As a leader on the team, I knew there was a pain point in our testing. We need to get this done. This will save us a lot of time if we get this thing automated. As a leader, I voice that. I get people, behind the project. But it takes sometimes a manager to come in there and to be able to make that happen, and to coordinate everything, and to provide that time to get that task done. So a manager might be more of something that makes sure the resources get there on top of the leadership, to grease the wheels, to be a liaison between teams, and to pull things in when things need to be pulled in.
Yeah, awesome. I think that's a great example.
Yeah. Let's transition a little bit. So sounds like you have experience in different types of software development life cycles. And I know you touted Kanban in there. Can you tell us a little bit about the difference between Kanban, Scrum, and Waterfall methodology, and which one you like the best and why?
I love Kanban. Oh my goodness. I love Kanban so much. I use an app called Trello. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but so that I can do more Kanban when I'm not working. So that's my thing with Kanban. But when you're talking about Kanban versus Scrum, a lot of it has to do with what you're working on. There's no way that you can say that Kanban's the perfect fit for every team. And I also don't think you can say that Scrum is a perfect fit for every team. So the reason my team chose Kanban was that what we were working on was very easily broken up into tasks that might be anywhere between 1 day and 2.5 days, right? Some things would be a little bit more, some things would be a little bit less, but we targeted 2.5 days per ticket. And that was going to be consistent the whole time. So what that allowed our team to do is, do we need to have 2-week sprints? Do we need to story point this? No, we don't need to story point this, because every ticket's going to be the same, right? So we were able to cut down on meeting times and planning times, because we didn't have to do that, right? Now, for teams that have sometimes small tickets and sometimes large tickets, okay, if you're going to have something that's going to be story pointed as a 7 or a 5 consistently with ones, then you can't necessarily do Kanban quite as well. It's not that you can't. even the agile coach that we had that suggested Kanban to us after a few years, they're like, oh, it's not that you guys can't do Scrum. I think you guys could actually do Scrum very easily, but it's what you like and what you feel is going to, get the best bang for your buck, essentially. And we were able to do Kanban in a way that is like, okay, well, we know that we can get this many defects through, similar to velocity on Scrum, right? But we would have an idea of what we can do every time, cut down the meetings, and just concentrate on getting the best release out for the customer.
Your new company challenges you that, did you guys pick Kanban versus Scrum because you lack the discipline of Scrum? How would you respond to that?
Okay, say that one more time so I can really.
Yeah, if your next company talks, asks you about your experience and maybe they practice Scrum, what if they challenge you and say, well, the reason that you did Kanban instead of Scrum at your previous company was because your team lacked the discipline? How would you respond to something like that?
Oh, well, that's tough because I would disagree with that assessment. And a lot of that has to do, I think, with just Scrum being more widely used than Kanban. I think a lot of people don't understand Kanban and how it works. And the reason I say that is it does take a lot of discipline to have a groom backlog in either one of them, but we would do daily, grooming for the backlog, daily prioritization. This thing is coming in, we're a release team, this is highly important, bam, we're going to put this up at the top right now. Everything else gets bumped down. And then you also have the work in progress limits. So you need to be very disciplined in seeing, okay, we've got 5 tickets in here, this column's red, we've got a problem, what are we going to do about this? So there's a lot to that process that does take discipline that might not be known by them. So if they're interested in Kanban, I explain the process to them. If not, I'll just let them have their opinion. We'll do Scrum and and excel at that too.
Awesome, thank you.
Did you want to talk about I know part of the question was also to talk about waterfall. Did you still want to talk about that?
No.
Okay.
That's okay.
Wanted to make sure that was addressed if needed.
I thought you were going to lead would you love waterfall, but no, sounds like you did. No, just kidding.
So I'm going to switch gears just a little bit.
Sure.
Talk to me about a time where you worked on a cross-functional team, and what were some of the challenges that you had working on that team?
Oh, well, I can give you a lot of input on this. Since I was part of the release team, I had to coordinate with multiple teams. And one of the problems, because I didn't, Kanban doesn't really have product owners, but since every other team on our team had product owners, I was essentially a product owner too, sort of. But we had, a lot of, stakeholders. So when I took over that role, I felt that there was a lack of communication with the other teams. And when I say that, what I mean by that is everybody feels that their issues are important, whether that's and I feel the same way when I'm QA. I feel this is important. When if I'm working on automation, I feel this is important. Everybody feels that wants their stuff taken care of ASAP. And so when I was dealing with support team or partner engineering or automation or whatever these teams were, they would want all their things fixed. Well, you've got 5 defects, you've got 10 defects, you've got 7 defects. Oh, we can only fix 12 bugs in this release. What are we going to do? How are we going to keep everybody happy? I wanted to provide visibility to the problem. and provide visibility right at the beginning of the release. So since we already had a prioritized backlog, we essentially knew basically what was going to go into the next release from day one. I would communicate to them and I'd say, hey guys, what do you need in this next release? So that way we can make sure that we're addressing them. They'd send me a list. We would look at it. We would juggle things around and say, hey, okay, this is what I'm targeting for this release. Before we start, here's the 20 bugs. I'm taking 3 from here, 4 from here. Do you guys have a problem with this? Because that allows them right from the start to be like, oh, you took one that we don't think is nearly as important as this one. We'll shuffle this stuff around. Give them a voice, empower them to be part of the process. They know from the start. We go a week into it, we're falling behind. Because maybe an issue is taking up more resources than we planned. Hey, we're gonna have to drop this one based on how this is. Are you guys okay with this? If not, we're gonna have to drop something else, or we're gonna have to pull other people in. Visibility into that whole process. Nobody's in the dark. Oh, what do you mean we're releasing now? You didn't fix half the bugs you said you did. No, you guys had a page. We had meetings. Everything's communicated to you. You know where things are going every step of the way. Made things so much nicer and easier, and there was never a feeling like they're not being taken seriously or whatever the case is. Everyone felt involved.
Sounds like you're practicing safe and you're an RTE, or like you guys are like the release train. Is that the methodology that your company is using?
We wanted to get a release train as much as we could, but there was always a fight back on that, because we never, it's one of those things where we were very good about being agile from an engineering and development standpoint, but not from management. And I mean that more of a higher up than anything else. So a lot of times we'd be like, oh, well, we want to get this into the next release. Oh, we want to get this into the next release. It's like, well, okay, our release is going to be 6 weeks now, not 3 weeks. And so every single time it was oh, let's add this, and then the release would keep pushing out, so that we never got that down to a consistent cadence. We wanted to.
So your team, going back to Brittany's question, your team was a cross-functional team, or you guys were kind of like a bug fixing team, whereas the other teams were more the cross-functional new development work?
So all the other teams were what we called feature teams. They would actually work on specific features going into a product. Typically, there were never bug fixes from the other teams unless we pulled them in on something, or it was something that they had just released and we didn't have necessarily a transfer of knowledge enough to be able to have the developers on our team tackle them. But we were support, we were defect fixes, we were handled the merges from the feature teams. We had our hands in every single aspect of everything going on.
So what were the roles on the team? So did you have like program management? Did you have like project management? Did you have?
Yeah, so we did have a product manager and a program manager, and occasionally we had a scrum master. But more often than not, we did not have a scrum master for whatever reason.
Okay.
I think it's I'll give you a challenge question, which is, should your team have been blown up, and if so, what happens if your team gets blown up? Where does all that work go, and is that the right thing to do, or is that the wrong thing to do?
I think for efficiency, I would say that's the wrong thing to do. And the reason why I say that is when you're working on a feature team, you really want to be able to focus on what's going into that feature and getting it in. And when you're doing demos with stakeholders and getting feedback from them, one of the ideas behind Kanban is to limit work in progress and to limit context switching, because we know that context switching has overhead. So when you're dealing with the release team and the velocity of things that can be getting thrown in there, I think it would be very hard for feature teams not to get distracted by all the other things that are coming in there. And, oh, but you want me to develop this feature at the same time too, but this big support issue came in there. Which one do you want me to work on? Now you can balance that, as management goes, but there's just the context switching. So I would advise against that, but it can be done, but I just don't think it's the right call.
Brittany, any other follow-up questions do you have?
No follow-up questions there.
I have the last question for you. From the actually really life example as well. Let's say the management trying to push you, not you, but push the whole team to do releases on Fridays. What would be your thoughts about it?
Released on a Friday?
Yeah.
No. What are you thinking? No. When I say that, I do want to be clear on why I'm saying that. I'm saying that more of if I was talking to my manager that knows me well. So the problem, and it depends on the team, and it depends on the company. So if you want to have weekend work and your team or company consistently has weekend work, then it's not a problem, right? When you have a release that goes out on a Friday and there's a big infield issue, things go crazy. You're going to have to, if it's a patch, you're going to have to pull the patch, but you're going to have all those people that maybe who had already gotten the patch before you could pull it. You have the potential of high support calls and all these things that are going to be happening potentially late on a Friday into Saturday, and depending on how bad of a problem it is, possibly on Sunday. So if your team is good and it can handle that and doesn't mind putting that time in, a Friday release is not a problem. Most people are not going to like that. So and it's protecting your employees, but also protecting the customer at the same time. So we would typically have Thursday releases where we would at least have that Friday cushion, and hopefully if something happened, minimum work on a Saturday, but it's just safer to avoid that Friday unless there's already resources assigned. We would typically push out to a virtual Monday if we it was like, okay, we can't do Thursday, let's not do Friday, virtual Monday.
Yep, I like it. All right, guys. Enrico, Brittany, do you want to go with the feedback?
Sure. Enrico, do you want to start?
Nope, please go ahead, Brittany.
Okay. So candidate 2, I think that you have good leadership instincts, and you care about that. So I would probably lean in more to that. And I think that you would benefit from reading some leadership books like Work Rules or Eaters we eat last. I think you could get a lot of great talking points from that. I would say when you were interviewing, you should hone in on your elevator pitch. And what I mean by that is who you are, what are you doing, or what do you do, and how does that help the business? And be more concise and talk more about like what you want to do. It felt a little rambly. And so if you can hone in on your elevator pitch, I think that would help out. Then when you're applying for a leadership role, be clear about why you want to be a leader. So like I said, you had good instincts. And after we dug into it a little bit more, you got into like helping people out with their growth. So lean into that and be clear when that question's asked. When you give an example, paint the picture, but you also want to be clear and concise, right? So it felt a little rambly when you were giving examples. So I think just being clear about like, this is, here's the what and the why, and this is, how it like gives you that example. So just being a little bit more clear. And then the last piece of feedback that I have is the release on Friday question. I think to be an effective change leader, you should seek to understand why before saying no. And so if you really want to be a leader in your organization, the question should have been back, why? Why would you release on Friday? What does that, like, what does the business need? Because you're here to serve the business and for them to also serve your team or your people. And so if you take it from a seek to understand approach, it will really benefit you in the future.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So my feedback is I'll start with similar to what Evgeny mentioned to the previous candidate. Looks like you've been with your current company for a long time. So, getting out there, interviewing, having opportunities and experiences that are a little different from your current company will give you some insight to round you out a little bit. Having, quite a few years of QA experience already, I guess I have one bit of advice for you, which is take a risk. That's something that I've really enjoyed doing after many years of experience. So kind of where Brittany was saying about the Friday release. Well, what if the answer is yes, because we're so good that we can do it on Friday? And you know what? We'll do it every day, actually. Or, if it comes to doing work like blowing away a release team, that sounds good. All ownership should be responsible to the Scrum team delivering the product, including building it all the way to executing and managing it out in production. And if things go wrong in production, they're the ones that are going to be called on Saturdays to fix it so that it doesn't happen again. If it hurts, do it more often. So that type of mentality and that type of risk, I think would be really fun for you. You've been doing this for a while. You don't want to kind of keep on doing the same things that you're doing. And I have a feeling you have enough experience and confidence and communication and leadership skills to take those types of risks. And once again, for a purpose, right? To serve the business. And I think in your next company, if you go in with that type of attitude, you might find that you're going to move mountains. So, but other than that, you're doing great. You have a lot of experience, and I wish you the best in your next role.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. I don't have any other inputs. I think Enrico and Brittany covered all of them. But I wish you good luck. Go take risk. Go and do more interviews that you can, and you should be good. Thank you very much, candidate number 2. Okay, let's stop share the screen. Okay, let's wrap it up. Enrico, Brittany, let's wrap it up about the 2 candidates. We have the whole picture of both candidates. So let's do this thing, right? What do you think? We're not gonna pick like who is the best, but let's say, what would you recommend one more time for both of them, or maybe one to another? All right, Enrico, you want to start maybe?
Yeah, I just want to say, ownership. I love that word ownership. And when you own something, it'll shine out, whether it's in leadership, in management, in individual contributor. Pick things that you own, whether it's technology or people, and really kind of hone in on those things and talk about that ownership, because that's really what a company is looking for. What can you do for the new company in terms of ownership that you could do the same thing within that company? That's what they're buying you for. Remember, a company pays you, so they're buying something from you. And that passion of ownership of something that you can pick in your experience is really key.
Yep. Brittany?
So for me, I think it'd be really honing in on leadership, investing in your people, and understanding that it's the people that work for you that make you capable to do your job and deliver on your expectations. And so really having the investment in your team and what you want. So honing in on like, what makes a good leader? How do you support career growth? What does career satisfaction look like? And so I think if you can really focus on that, if you're looking for your next leadership role, then you're taking into consideration change management, hiring practices, and increasing morale, which then becomes a force multiplier. So that would be the advice that I would give both of them if they both want to move into leadership roles.
I love it. Yes, definitely. Ownership, especially for the managing positions, is it is the key. I think everything else is just details, but that should be the core, definitely. Because when I hired people, and I fired people, the usually people got fired because of lack of ownership, or blame game or something like that. It's just it's not for leaders, not for managing positions. But yeah, I completely agree with you guys, Enrico, Brittany, and yeah. Anyway, I think that was very interesting today's session. As I said, today was the first session for leadership role. I wish to do this one more time. And Enrico, Brittany, please, you are always welcome to do this with us. Do we have, by the way, any questions from the audience? Let me check. I think we don't. Yeah. But one more thing. Let's guys, are you guys hiring at this moment? If you do, please tell us about who do you hire, what openings you have, and how people can contact you.
Sure. Yeah, definitely hiring. Actually have 33 positions open right now. I have roles from QA tester, which is a black box tester, QA automation engineers. Most of our tests are written in JavaScript. So if you understand JavaScript, you'll be able to pick up the different frameworks that we use. And then we also have QA analysts that do black and gray box testing. And management roles. Sorry, we have so many roles. I'm trying to keep track of them. We're scaling rapidly, so many positions. I work at Swift, so I'm the director of QA at Swift. You can follow me on LinkedIn, and I am constantly posting there. We also have engineering roles, and our company has, I think, 300 open roles for that we are intended to fill over the next year.
Oh wow, that's a lot.
Holy cow! Good luck with that.
Thanks.
That's amazing. I assume all remote or many remote, right? Due to the pandemic.
So it actually depends. So Zwift is interesting. It is a fitness platform, but we also use a real bike or trainer to play the game. So it's a fitness platform that you play. It's like a game, and so we need people to test that integration. Some people. So some of the roles have to go into the office. We have a beautiful office in Long Beach that you would have to go in to play with all of the different bikes and trainers, and then how do they work within the game. The other roles can be remote. It just depends on the team and the role.
Nice.
That's awesome. And I am always hiring as well. Ashcompanies.com. I posted it on the chat there. Very similar to Brittany, our front end automation is going to be in JavaScript, and our back end automation is in C# as a Microsoft shop. So if you have experience in any of those, we're always hiring for that. Leadership roles as well. And we are in the health and fitness and specialty network type business. So, and at this point, it is all remote. The company is remote at this point.
All right, awesome. And I guys looking for software engineers, senior software engineers, and lead software engineers with a Python and React. If you guys know someone, please ping me in the Slack, or you can send me a direct message in the LinkedIn. Anyway, guys, thank you for joining for today's session. Let's keep ball rolling. I'll see you next session. It's gonna be, when it's gonna be? It's gonna be May, 2 weeks after. So May 8th, I'll see you guys. Thank you for joining, and have a good weekend. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Such a pleasure. Nice to meet you as well, Enrique.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Have a good
Enrique.
one.
Thank you. Bye-bye.